Good afternoon. Thanks for attending the Access Atlanta Bar, Meet Me at the Bar event. I am Jericho Phillips, and I'll be moderating this group and the discussion today. We have quite the impressive speakers today. So we will be dividing the speakers up into three different groups and going over three different topics. But I'll give a brief introduction to everyone that's speaking. And we'll go more in depth in each of their sections of their background of their Atlanta bar experience and what they're up to now. So first we have the Honorable Paige Reese Whitaker of the Superior Court of Fulton County. She's right there. We have Lauren Brenner, is a senior attorney at Kilpatrick Townsend. Ty Brown is a partner at Hawkins, Parnell and Young. Stephen Bush is a senior associate with Bacher Ramsey. Betsy Griswold's corporate counsel for United Postal Service. John Hadden is the owner and founder of the Hadden Law Firm. Sarah Badcock is the deputy director for the Truancy Intervention Project of Georgia. What's that?
Those sandwiches will be ready for curbside pickup if you wanted to just drive up there.
You may want to mute yourselves. I'll mute, actually. Okay. And then last but not least, we have Chris Leitner, who is a partner with Austin and Bird. So today's event, there's Chris. Today's event, like I said, we're going to divide the speakers up into three different groups, and we're going to go topic by topic. So in our first group, we have Lauren Brenner, Stephen Bush, and Chris Leitner, and they're going to be discussing innovation at the Atlanta Bar and making a mark in the Atlanta Bar Association. So if Lauren, Stephen, and Chris would like to tell us a little bit about their backgrounds in the Atlanta Bar, and I'm going to volunteer Chris to go first. So.
Great, thanks Jericho, and thanks again to everyone for attending here today. Just briefly on my background with the bar, I got involved, I'd say 2 weeks after I started with the firm, fresh out of law school. A partner came down the hallway and said, I have been volunteered to drum up sponsorships for the IP section Springposium, and that was quickly delegated to me, but it turned out to be a great opportunity because I was able to network with all of the sponsors, potential sponsors, and also kind of quickly make a name for myself in the IP section. And that's really what I found valuable early on with the Atlanta Bar was the quick pathway to leadership roles. If you're willing to jump in, get involved, take on a project, whether it's sponsorships or something else, you can quickly be recognized for that. And there's leadership opportunities available. And just growing through the IP section, I've remained involved over the years now with the big bar and in the leadership with the board for the bar as a whole at this point now. So I've found value with it throughout my career. I've met great folks like Jericho and everyone else here on the call today. So it's been fantastic.
All right, Lauren, you want to go next? Oh, wait.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. I actually have a very similar story like Chris. I also joined the Atlanta Bar shortly after graduating law school. I originally started at a small IP boutique who pretty much was very instrumental in a lot of the Atlanta Bar foundations as well as the IP section foundations. So they thought that obviously it was very important for all of their attorneys to be members of the Atlanta Bar as well as take an active participation in that. So I have been both on the IP committee as well as the Atlanta Council of Younger Lawyers. And I have slowly grown through the ranks of the ACYL, and this year I am actually the president of the ACYL, which gives me a lot of other lovely things to do at the Atlanta Bar. And I very much enjoyed having a subset group of people that I have access to through the the bar that we have, especially the ACYL, since we are just kind of an amalgamation of younger lawyers, doesn't matter your practice group. And so it's been a nice change from, you feel like this tiny fish in the big bar sea. You actually get to know a lot of people. Chris and I see each other at a lot of events. There's a lot of overlap. So it is nice to have a smaller subgroup here.
Great. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Jericho. I've been a member of the Atlanta Bar for a few years now. And it wasn't until I joined Bodker Ramsey and realized that every single member of the firm was part of the Atlanta Bar, and they really pushed it. And it wasn't until I joined that I realized that it was, a very close-knit group, and that it was more of a community than, other bars that you can be involved in. And I found through that it was much easier to take on leadership roles and to kind of get to know every other member, especially those who have the same interest and practice in the same area, because it is such a tighter knit community. And I did realize that after joining was that a lot of the attorneys that I had kind of come up with and people that I already knew at the time were already members of the Atlanta Bar as well. So it wasn't something where I had to, meet a whole bunch of new people. But the people I already did know, they were able to introduce me to more connections, when I'm starting the privacy section, and other professionals who are willing to help and just reach out, in any way. But so far, joining the Atlanta Bar has been good because of that community, and, everything that they've done and the support I've received so far has been just very, very beneficial.
Awesome. Thank you. And you'll hear each and every one of the panelists' background and journeys through the Atlanta Bar Association. And we're doing that intentionally so that everyone on this call can kind of see how easy, or at least a way, to get plugged into the Atlanta Bar Association, and if you want to move up through the ranks or just be an active participant. So thank you to you three for that, and look forward to hearing the rest of your stories. But for you three in particular, what was the inspiration for making your unique mark at the Atlanta Bar, and kind of what made you decide that the Atlanta Bar is the place to make that mark? Whether it be in leadership or starting a new program or section, what was it, and why did you pick the Atlanta Bar to do it?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. As far as privacy and cybersecurity, and that's the section that I started, those are topics that are so ubiquitous, and they affect everybody in every area of practice in every industry. And given, again, the community of the Atlanta Bar and that Atlanta in general, and the practitioners that are, they know each other so well, it's one of those things that we need to express a lot of the concerns and a lot of the things that everyone needs to watch out for with regards to privacy and cybersecurity. And so starting up a section within that community was the best way to do it. And the reason is because we can put on panels and information sessions that apply to people that don't necessarily practice these areas. And, they can be interesting to people who do areas that are completely different. But again, because we have that community, the support and, the outreach that we can field for doing these kinds of things in these panels, it's much more simplified.
I'll dovetail off of that from Stephen. One aspect for me that he mentioned as well is the community. The Atlanta Bar is a voluntary bar organization. So I found not only a smaller pool of folks that are involved, but those folks that are involved in the Atlanta Bar are intentionally involved. They're engaging, they're willing to take lead on a CLE or get involved. However, they're willing to do so, or able best to do so. And I think that's what we're looking for future volunteers as well. And that kind of led to the Sidebar Program, which is kind of the brainchild that came from a brainstorming session at a bar retreat with Betsy Griswold here as well, and myself. And the goal is to get folks involved actively and to give some insight into how best to do that, whether it's volunteering through a section, helping someone like Stephen form a new section, or just, getting out and meeting folks and finding some meaningful mentoring relationships. And that's really a goal of Sidebar, is to build relationships with the new attorneys that are coming into the Atlanta Bar and finding our next generation of leaders.
Yeah, and I felt like because it's a smaller group, of individuals, it was easier to get involved because you weren't necessarily trying to like, you know, wade your way through the deep end of the pool to just get like noticed. So you are able to get involved so much easier and do as much or as little as you really feel comfortable with. I think what's great about our section is just the crossover that we all have. You know, we have this little group where it's just, we constantly are sending out emails on like, hey, does anybody know an attorney, or does anybody in this group do this particular type of practice? And it's nice to have a group of people that you feel comfortable reaching out to, because, you know, I wouldn't know necessarily a whole bunch of people to refer things to, but I have this little group that because of how the ACYL works, we're just every single sort of practice area. And so we've sent things around, which is nice. And it's just, it is like Chris and Steven said, it's a bunch of people who actively want to be involved. So it's not like, you know, you're pulling teeth on and volunteering people to do things on CLEs or things like that. These are people who, like yourself, who want to be involved, and we very much appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay, we did have a question that I think kind of dovetails well into what you three just mentioned. If you had a suggestion for an associate to get involved, what would be the best way? Like, what would you suggest the early entry points would be?
I can speak to that. You know, just starting the section and having a lot of people reach out and want to help. Not just the members at large on our board and the board members for the section, but we have a lot of young practitioners and students even that help the section out by doing research and setting up social media posts or something like that, and reaching out to other students, other professors who could potentially be speakers. And you know, that kind of thing wouldn't happen if we didn't have these students or young associates who were just actively reaching out to me or the board members to see what they could do to get involved with. You know, especially if it's topics that they're interested in, or even not, or if they might think it might be, you know, one day and they just want to get to know people, just reach out to the board members of the section and see how you can help and how you can get to know them. Because, you know, I promise you, any board member is going to be eager to speak with you as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what Steven said, I mean, even if you don't have necessarily the desire to immediately join a board as a member at large, but reaching out to the Atlanta Bar does a great job of putting everybody's contact information that's on the board for that particular section. And like Steven said, I mean, they're all going to be like, yes, like if you want to help, we will accept your offer to help. And then, you know, you can start to get to know those people, or even if you want to take the leap and go ahead and self-nominate to be a member at large, part of that board, that is also super helpful. It's nice to see that people want to get involved and participate in your board, and then just that's how you kind of get your foot in the door, is contacting somebody, or just go ahead and throw yourself in the ring to be a member at large on a board, and then you just kind of move up from there.
Yeah, I echo that from Lauren as well. I've seen the most success for folks that get involved with a section. It doesn't have to be leadership of the section. Just get involved, find some aspect of the section that you're passionate about. But you know, to Lauren's point too, if you're not sure you want to jump in the deep end there in terms of a section, the Atlanta Bar does have various committees and programs. One coming to mind is the Wellness Committee, where you know certain members can get together once a month for various activities that are just more social in nature. And maybe that's what you want to do first to get to meet folks. So whether it's that or whether it's section focused, I do want to emphasize one focus of the Atlanta Bar and the board generally over the past year with the circumstances and the challenges that everyone's facing is, how do we best engage members? How do we get new members and the next generation engaged and interested in being involved? So with that, I would encourage anyone who is interested in getting involved with a section or with a committee to also reach out to either the section leadership that you're interested in or to the larger bar leadership. We're all fairly accessible, and let us know your ideas. We're open to new ideas, and maybe someone on this call or someone in the pipeline in the future has a great idea on how to make the Atlanta bar more innovative. So we're always open to new ideas.
Yeah, okay. And then our last question for this section, which we have about a minute left for this group, is, were there any challenges that you faced? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Challenges.
I would say with anything, again, I can speak to starting the section. There were challenges, I would say, in getting people on board at first, but at the same time, I mean, we received so much support just from everybody, even if they weren't really into privacy and cybersecurity, just from the existing Atlanta Bar Board, reaching out to people they know who are privacy experts and having them reach out to me. So even though there was a challenge getting people on board and just telling people about the section so we had enough signatures to start it, the support that we had through the bar made it so much easier to get the section off the ground. But again, just like anything, I mean, there might be some challenges getting anybody involved with something that you're starting out, but you just have to keep at it and make sure that people know that it is something that's going to serve the community, and the community will definitely match you.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I had, luckily, the great support of at the time, president of the Atlanta Bar with launching the Sidebar Program. But to Stephen's point, it does take patience. It does take a lot of planning. It takes a lot of socializing to get folks on board with any new program or new initiative, because you don't want it to be just a one-year type thing that dissolves and goes away.
Awesome. Well, thank you three. We'll move on to our next group of speakers, which will be Judge Whitaker, Ty Brown, and John Hadden. This section will cover courts and litigation. And at first, the first group, I want to hear about each of your backgrounds in the Atlanta Bar and how you got involved. So Judge Whitaker, would you like to start?
Sure. So my story is a little bit different. I did not get involved in the Atlanta Bar early in my career. I'd say I was at least midway through my career before I joined the Atlanta Bar. I think probably because I had been a public sector lawyer on a government salary, and firms might pay dues, but the government does not. And so that really was a bar to entry for me for a little while. But when I moved over to the Fulton DA's office from the state AG's office, the criminal law section was kind of getting up and running, and they just had such great programming that I thought, okay, well, I'll check this out. And I think I maybe just paid to go to some things first. And it was a great way to get to know people in my practice area. And like I say, the programming was just really good, and it was a monthly lunch. And so I think that was the first section that I joined, and I was just jotting down all the sections that I've been involved with since then. And it's a little bit crazy because I think I've been in the public interest section, the women in the practice section, litigation section, family law section, judicial section. So, I mean, it kind of snowballed after I did finally join, and it's really been great. And I would say that if I knew how great it had been, I would have gotten involved, bitten the bullet, and paid the money a whole lot earlier.
That's awesome. Ty, would you like to go?
Yes, I joined the Atlanta Bar Association shortly after starting here. I was hired by a partner, Lane Young, who many of you know. And Lane was very active in the litigation section at the time. And I just followed him around wherever he went, I went. And at the time, the litigation section breakfasts were at the Colonnade. And I used to tease him, where are you taking me to on Cheshire Bridge? We're in New Digs now at Ansley Country Club. But I remember those days and really enjoyed it. Most of the people that I know in the Atlanta legal community started with going to the litigation section breakfasts, and it just grew from there. So thankful to Lane and thankful to the litigation section.
Awesome. John?
Well, my involvement is sort of similar to Ty's. I started out at a small to mid-sized firm, about 30 attorneys right out of law school, and my mentor, one of the senior partners there, insisted that I join the Atlanta bar. And of course, I was still trying to figure out, how to draft an answer. So I didn't know what was going on. So I said, sure, I'll go. And he started dragging me to these early morning breakfasts, once a month on Fridays, which, was a new associate, 24 years old. I wasn't crazy about having to get up that early to go to a breakfast with a bunch of lawyers, but it ended up being great. I loved it. I didn't know really any lawyers outside my firm and some people I went to law school with. Just read about them in the daily report, but I remember going to those meetings and getting to meet and sit next to some of the most well-known lawyers and successful lawyers in Atlanta. I got to meet some federal judges, which was pretty cool for a brand new associate. And I was really impressed that all of these people, no matter how, to me at least, important seeming they were and successful, they were just regular lawyers. And it was great getting to meet everybody. And that was back in 2004, 2005. And I've been going to those breakfasts, throughout the years ever since. About 5 years ago, I said, just for the heck of it, why don't I throw my name in for a board position, and managed to get elected and have stayed involved. And the litigation section has been great. The ACYL also I was involved in for a number of years. And then when I started my own firm, the solo practitioner and small firm section was really invaluable. They have a couple of meetings a month, lunch, breakfast meetings, where you can really meet people who might be in completely different practice areas, but you can learn more about the business of law. And it's just in general, the Atlanta bar has really broadened my horizons as far as the number of people that I know and have gotten to be friends with over the years.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all to all three of you. Litigation and being in court, there is an innate dichotomy of interest and opposition that just comes with litigation, of having opposing counsel. And so I kind of wanted to hear all three of your thoughts on how do you humanize the opposing counsel, and what value does that bring to your representation of clients?
Yesterday we met, and we've discussed this a couple of times. In the litigation section, there's a program called Take Your Adversary to Lunch. And I've participated in that 3 years. 3 years, 2 attorneys. So I've been to lunch with the same attorney 2 of those 3 years. It is an excellent program. It is designed to break down those barriers and bring together warring parties. And the 2 attorneys that I went to lunch with, I was intimidated at first. The cases were very, very large cases to me, hotly contested. And by the time we went to lunch, both cases had been ongoing for at least 2 years. One case had been going on for 3 years, ended up going on for 5 years. At those lunch meetings, though, we didn't talk about the cases. We got to know each other on a personal level. Those 2 attorneys are 2 of my best friends now. In fact, one, Tony Cochran, and that attorney and I were at an earlier meeting this morning. So programs like that really help, but I really want to go back and emphasize something that John talked about, and that is the breakfast meetings. When you go to those breakfast meetings, you're meeting attorneys all across the city, if not all across the state, and you're building your reputation. Even if you do not meet or get to know your opposing counsel, word gets back on your character and your reputation, and that's going to help you in your case. If opposing counsel hears and realizes and understands that other people think highly of you, that you're trying to do the right thing and grow your practice, that's going to help you build a positive reputation with your opposing counsel.
So I'm going to echo both of them on the breakfast. I think John's experience with, you sit down and you're this 20-something-year-old lawyer and you're sitting next to a federal judge or you're sitting next to a named partner in a law firm. It really does a lot to broaden your horizon. And in Atlanta, the legal community is absolutely gigantic. We don't have the luxury of a small town practice, but to be able to get to know litigators in a smaller environment makes it easier for you to, when you are litigating against somebody, you already know them and you might be more likely to pick up the phone and ask them something about a discovery issue or something like that instead of papering the file. And you tend to get a lot more done that way. And the family section also has monthly breakfasts. And when I was on the family bench for a few years, I would attend those regularly. And I don't know if it's just something about getting up early and going to breakfast, but I loved going to both of those breakfasts and the litigation section breakfasts. And it's kind of before you start your day and everybody's there together. It's just a nice way to start to get to know people. One other thing that I think is really beneficial in humanizing opposing counsel is when you get to know them outside of even these breakfasts or litigation. We do a lot of, or I've had a lot of experience with sections doing mixers and service projects together. And when you are at a food bank with a net on your hair, throwing cereal in a box with other people, that you're really actually working as a team, and you really do get to know those people as human beings. Or since we have been in our COVID era and doing a lot of mixers by Zoom, if you're playing a trivia game with other lawyers, again, it's a time to get to know people as humans and not just as litigators. And then when you are in front of the judge or talking to opposing counsel in court, you know them as more than just the other side of the case. So I think, also I was thinking, I can't remember the name of it, but the Atlanta Bar hosts a band party every summer. And, that's, again, it's like, you're not lawyers then, you're just human beings going to listen to music and dance. And it makes it a smaller bar, and it's a good way to get to know people.
I would say that more often than not, at least in the cases that I have pending in the Atlanta area, my opposing counsel is somebody that I have met or know well, usually through the Atlanta Bar. I'm very active in the litigation section and the solo practitioner and small firm section, but this is going to be true of any section of the Atlanta Bar. If you go to a lunch or a breakfast or a mixer, happy hour, whatever it is, you're going to meet a lot of people and you're going to get to be friends with some, or at least friendly with some. Every case that I get, when I get an answer in, I usually call up opposing counsel just to introduce myself, and I couldn't tell you the number of times, dozens, if not hundreds of times, one or the other of us will say, oh yeah, I remember seeing you at such and such event, or I've seen you at the litigation breakfasts or whatever, or I'll say that. And it's usually a good way to, just kind of start off on friendly terms. And again, I've gotten to be good friends with some of my opposing counsel, a lot of them who I've met first through just various Atlanta Bar events. So it's just a kind of a kickstart to being on good terms with your opposing counsel. And as I said in one of our planning discussions, when you're asking somebody to pass the salt at breakfast, it's hard to get into a really nasty discovery dispute with them a few months down the road. You're just on better terms all around.
Thank you all three for that information. And I definitely echo all of your points, because as a young attorney, like within my first 3 years, it definitely changed my experience going to the litigation breakfast and seeing judges who I would be before soon, and seeing them as people just eating. When you just think of them so highly on the bench, that it made my nerves a little less when I was walking into the courtroom. So thank you all three for that. Up next, we're going to go to the third group, which is Sarah Badcock and Betsy Griswold. So could each of you tell us your background in the Atlanta Bar and what you're up to now? Betsy, would you like to start?
There we go. I'll unmute myself. So you can't see how gray my hair is on the Zoom call. Maybe you can. But I've been involved in the Atlanta Bar for a long, long time. And in fact, my first area of service was in 1996 when I chaired the corporate counsel section. And I just make a point of that because I'm going to come back around to it in a minute. I also have been on the board of the Atlanta Bar Foundation since 2011. And I was president of the Atlanta Bar Foundation 2018 and 2020, which was really a highlight of service at the Atlanta Bar. I also serve on the Atlanta Bar Innovation Study Group Committee, which is a fantastic group. We're really looking strategically at what the bar will be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And I say a lot of what the bar will be depends on many of you who have attended this event today. I also serve on the finance committee of the Atlanta Bar Association. And I was fortunate enough to partner up with Mr. Leitner here to come up with Sidebar a couple years ago. And just as a note, and then I'll end it by saying, I'm about to get involved in the corporate counsel section yet again, 25 years later. So there you go. You can never escape from the Atlanta Bar, but it is a huge honor to be able to have served in all these capacities. And as you can tell, that desire and that engagement just continues regardless of how many years of practice you've been in. So yeah, so that's my story.
And I'm a little bit more recent to the Atlanta Bar, I guess. So I was in private practice for 6 years at a law firm in Atlanta before I transitioned to the nonprofit public interest sector. And it was when I made that transition that I became involved in the public interest section, which I'm now the chair of. And that was tremendously helpful for me in making that transition, because even though I knew some folks in the public interest sector in Atlanta generally, being involved in the section and being involved in the bar through the section really opened the doors to more relationships and more folks to sort of know and see and run into at the events, which helped me tremendously in the work that I was doing. So it's been really great. And the leadership transition, as Chris sort of said, you come in and you can very quickly find yourself leading a section, which is both daunting and wonderful.
Great. Thank you both. So this section is about public interest in kind of the next generation of the Atlanta Bar Association. And so I kind of wanted to hear about how the Atlanta Bar, for the sake of time, I'm kind of combining two questions. How does the Atlanta Bar partner with public interest, and what does public interest look like going forward with COVID impacted on it? So if you could speak to those points.
Who do you want to go first, Jericho?
Either one. You go ahead, Betsy.
Okay, I'll start. So one of the things, you know, as a part of what the function of the Atlanta Bar Foundation, we sponsor. We're the charitable arm of the bar, of the Atlanta Bar Association, and we sponsor many, many wonderful programs that I want to highlight. And, you know, it's so critical to develop an attitude of service. Sometimes service is in your DNA, sometimes it's not, but it's something that you can certainly cultivate and grow. And the Atlanta Bar and the programs of the foundation are just wonderful places to do that. And we can't forget that as a lawyer, we have an obligation to give back, and you can do that in so many different ways, but pro bono is an excellent way to do it. So the Atlanta Bar Foundation sponsors many wonderful programs: the Summer Law Internship Program, the Minority and Diversity Clerkship Program. We have a charitable grant program, and Judge Whitaker, you mentioned the Summer Law Party. So that's one of the biggest fundraisers that the foundation puts on in order to fund these wonderful programs. So I encourage you, to get involved in any of those. And just a little bit about the grant program. So the grant program that the foundation sponsors gives to so many wonderful pro bono organizations, and there is no lack of worthy organizations where anyone can serve. And so, I could name a laundry list, but I'd leave somebody out. So that's the purpose of the foundation. But cultivating, I think one of the purposes of Sidebar is to drive engagement but it's also to cultivate that spirit of service. You know, we hear this word servant leaders sometimes, but that's exactly what the Atlanta Bar characterizes for me. And I know for so many others on this panel. So, you know, what we want to do is encourage an attitude of service, engagement in service, and that includes service in the Atlanta Bar, but also to have young lawyers develop that sense, serve, and leave the organization better than you found it. So I would just say for many of the organizations in Atlanta, the Atlanta Bar Foundation and the Atlanta Bar Association are the perfect vehicles to do that. So, and I'll just make one point real quickly. So when Chris and I worked on Sidebar, we were very, very concerned that COVID was going to derail all the great momentum we had developed in the first couple of years of the program. And Jericho, we saw you at a couple Atlanta Bar events and some foundation events, and we recognized that you had that engagement, you had that spark, you had that desire, you had that DNA for service. And so it didn't take much. I don't think we had to bend your arm too much, but we saw that in Jericho, and we said, hey, would you like to co-chair the Sidebar Committee? And he and Rebecca, Charlie, have done a wonderful job with that. So he's a perfect example of what you can do to develop leaders in the Atlanta Bar.
I promise the check's going to clear on that endorsement. It's just going to go right over. But no, I definitely appreciated getting involved with a Sidebar and passing the torch to me. Thanks a lot. Go ahead, Sarah.
So I'll just briefly add on pro bono, so our section, the public interest section, is primarily attorneys who are practicing in public interest organizations. So Truancy Intervention Project, which is where I work, Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation, Atlanta Legal Aid, places like that. And so we try to provide support and professional development for those folks. But we also work with the bar to make sure that there are good pro bono opportunities for folks to take part in, as Betsy was alluding to. And I think that those opportunities can really be a win-win in terms of, I know networking is such a buzzword, but relationship building, right? And also business development, sort of like what Judge Whitaker was saying before. Like if you're out doing a Trees Atlanta project with in-house counsel whose business you're trying to get, like it's a nice way to build a relationship when you're not focused on, let me tell you all the great things about our firm and the great way we're going to represent you, but we have to dig the hole deep enough for the tree and all that kind of stuff. So you sort of build that relationship in a way that then leads to potential, business and stronger relationships going forward, also while doing some good in the community. And there's lots of sort of community service opportunities like Trees Atlanta, but obviously pro bono opportunities too, that all of the organizations that are represented in the public interest section try to make available to folks. And then the last thing I'll say on COVID is the impact of COVID on the communities that most of the public interest organizations work with has been devastating, and the response has been different, right? So where all of us have embraced the pivot, right? We've all been pivoting so much, we've done a 360 and started doing it again. And events like this, which before would have been in person, we've all figured out how to do it on Zoom, and we're even sophisticated enough now that we don't need the virtual background because we can get our lighting right, that sort of stuff. A lot of the clients that we work with have not been able to even begin to think about how to do that sort of pivot. The technological capability isn't there, the internet's not there. And so for a lot of us, we've been working really, really hard to reach our clients, but there's only so much you can do when you can't see people in person and you can't safely go to the house and knock on the door and make sure everybody's okay and ask what they might need. All of that to say, this fall, when all of us are, right, knock on wood, fingers crossed, beginning to get back to normal, beginning to think about traveling again, beginning to think about all the fun things we can do, the floodgates are going to open for all of us in these public interest organizations. And so I very much hope that all of you will consider devoting some time to pro bono this summer and fall, because as things open up, that's when we're going to finally be able to get to some of the need, and the need is going to be really, really great.
Thank you. I definitely hear you, and I want to make sure that we're all pushing that message to our friends who are not here or anyone else that pro bono services and opportunities will be opening up once the world opens back up. So definitely put that as a priority once that happens. All right, we are right on time. I want to thank all of the panelists and speakers today for mostly just being yourselves, but also telling us about yourself. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for all the attendees for showing up today. Please tell your friends about this event and share the information you heard today. Other than that, we are good to go and we will close out. Have a great day.